single most common factor for children who develop resilience is at least one stable and committed relationship with a supported parent, caregiver, or other adult. Military kids are very resilient, and we really want to work on fostering that resilience. So one way we can do that is to work on networking. So parents, we want parents to be able to build a network for themselves, but we also want to help build a network for their kids. So in building this network, we want to be able to have 5 loving adults that can spend quality time with your child. Now I know with the coronavirus out, quality time spending with your child is something that's got its own interesting definition, but even being able to have conversations over Zoom or Skype or just being actively involved. So having those adults, multiple adults involved in your child's life. And it's also connecting with other families that are going through the deployment that are your child's age. It can be really helpful for other kids to have kids their own age to be able to talk about their experience through the deployment and just share their thoughts and their feelings with somebody who understands what they're going through. So when you're working on talking about the deployment with your kids, we want to make sure that you speak in a calm and supportive manner. You don't want to start talking about it maybe when you're super emotional. You want to be able to be calm. You want to provide as much information as you can that's age appropriate. You don't want to get into the nitty gritty details necessarily of what kind of combat is going to be seen and that kind of stuff, but maybe just those general of this is where we're going. If you're able to share that information, just provide as much information as you can according to their age. And remind them that the goal of deployment is to keep everyone safe. This caregiver is going to whatever location it is, and the whole purpose is to help keep them safe and us safe. Focus on the safety piece. You can also read books or watch a lot of videos about other children experiencing deployment. There's a lot of books for a lot of different ages. There's some really great books for teens out there as well. And for the younger kids, Sesame Street actually has an entire video specifically for going through deployment for younger kids. And that's a really great resource too. Another option is being able to have the child start to write a book about their own experience. So what is it like going through the deployment from their point of view? And you can go about it as if they're writing a book, but it comes out more like this is their journal, of a way for them to express their thoughts and their feelings about the situation. And that can be a coping skill just in itself. You want to talk about the deployed parent frequently. You want to keep them active in your life. When you're dealing with a situation at home, maybe you guys are having fun, bringing in, this parent would have a lot of fun right now. What do you think they'd be doing right now? Those kinds of things. Really talk about the deployed parent frequently. Reminding them how much their parent does love and miss them, and really encouraging your child to talk about their thoughts and their feelings. They need to be able to get those out there rather than just stuffing them inside. So different ways in order to help stay connected with the kiddos. Letters are a big thing. Letters back and forth, including maybe art projects that the kids have made, little paintings, stuff like that. Also, I've heard stories of them writing a story back and forth. So the family starts a story and they send it to the soldier. The soldier adds on to that story and sends it back. And the family adds on to the story and then sends it back. And it goes back and forth, and they actually create a story together, going back and forth in letter format. Care packages are awesome. I remember the things that are wanted in a care package were hot sauce, really good coffee, flavored water, beef jerky, sunflower seeds, things to do when you're bored, foot powder, stuff like that. So rather than just sending a random care package, you might want to ask your soldier, what kind of stuff do you think that would be helpful to have? What kind of stuff do you have access to? What stuff don't you have access to where you're at? What's going to be helpful for you? And also there's a lot of really fun ideas for themed packages. So I remember sending one to my soldier that was Halloween themed. And in this Halloween themed package, there was a little figurine that when you pressed its stomach, it did that creepy laugh, that kind of a laugh. And it was something that became a joke between us. So being able to send a fun themed care package back and forth is something that is always welcomed. Connecting via phone call, Skype, Zoom, whatever the soldier has available, and even seeing if you can record the soldier's voice on a book for the kids to listen to, that can be a great way to stay connected to. Making a countdown at home. A lot of times there's paper chains that are made, or a calendar, just a way to either count up, or a lot of times it's best to count down the days of when they get home. And an idea that was sent my way was to fill a jar with goodnight kisses. So every night we're going to get a kiss, good night. You take a Hershey's Kiss and you put it in a jar, and you get a kiss, good night. And you keep doing that until they're home. Something that's helpful, you can put a map on the wall and pin where the deployed parent is going to be with pictures of them, what time it is, things like that. That gives the kids more information. It gives them information of concrete understanding of this is where they are, this is what time it is there, this is the kind of stuff they might be doing. And as always, there's Pinterest. Pinterest is a great resource for you to be able to find some ideas on ways to stay connected with your soldier. They have so many good ideas just on Pinterest alone. So this is one of the ones that I've found. There's a time of what time it is here, what time it is there, you know, the mail that's going, where is my soldier? It just gives the kids more information. It makes it a little bit more concrete and relatable for them. And that just having that information can be calming in itself. So working on just coping with the deployment in general, focus is on maintaining schedules and routines as much as possible. This leads to feelings of safety. So I know that not all routines and all schedules are going to be able to be kept the same, but the ones that you can keep the same, please do. That schedule leads to a sense of safety and security. Engaging in family activities with those supportive adults we talked about. Again, I know right now with coronavirus, things are a little bit different, but trying to find ways for those adults to also engage with kids. There's a lot of different things you can do. You know, there's Uno Freak. Uno Freak is something that's online where one person can be on their computer, another person can be on their computer, and you can play Uno back and forth. So you can play a game together while you're on the different computers. There's ways that you can play video games or computer games with your kids from a different computer. So being able to just engage, interact with those identified adults, those supportive adults in their lives. Create an ongoing plan for someone to take the kids for a while. I know that with coronavirus, this might be a little bit in the future, but caregivers do need a break too. And so having a plan set aside already, so that way, rather than wait until things get to a point where you're burned out and can't handle it anymore and then need to find a resource, maybe have something set up ahead of time where every so often this is going to happen, so I have my break. Being patient and calm if your child is showing big emotions or acting out. Okay, it's depersonalizing and tending to their needs. And I'm going to talk a lot more in depth about this in just a few minutes. Pointing out the child's strengths and positive characteristics in praise. So one of the things is a lot of times we say, oh, you did a good job, which is a great type of praise, but you also maybe want to add those positive characteristics in that. That was very kind. That looked very caring. That was very responsible. That was very respectful. Thank you. Pointing out those positive characteristics that kids have can really help boost them up and help them recognize those positives within themselves. Encouraging conversations around thoughts and feelings. Again, you want to be able to have conversations regularly around thoughts, feelings, so that they can feel comfortable sharing these with you rather than stuffing and holding them in. And encouraging your child to master new skills and feel confident about something. So the more competent somebody feels about something, the more confident they feel. And so you want to be able to lead to a feeling of confidence about something, work on becoming competent in it. So learn something new, become good at it. And that can increase an overall feeling of self-confidence. And trying to connect with teachers, administrators, coaches, anybody else involved in the kid's life. If that they're deploying, be able to tell the teachers, let the teachers know, hey, the spouse is deploying at this time, so the kid is going to be experiencing these things. It provides a lot of information for the teachers to know. They can keep a lookout for things that might come up, different behaviors that might come up, and just be able to provide extra support for the kids from their perspective and from their position. So then we talk about, what do we do about those really big emotions? So we start by talking about the brain and what goes on in the brain when you have to deal with emotions and behaviors. So in the brain, there's the amygdala. It's that green globby thing in the middle, that greenish, bluish globby thing. And that's your amygdala. That's your emotional center of your brain. That's where your fight or flight is, and that's where your emotions are. And so when that's going really, really strong, other parts of your brain don't necessarily work as well, like your prefrontal cortex, which is on the far left side there, right underneath the frontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is the logic, decision-making, impulse control, emotion control part of the brain. This is the part of the brain that does all those things, but yet it doesn't fully develop until you're over 25 years old. When you're 25 years old, about that time is when your brain is fully developed, and your prefrontal cortex, that control area of the brain, is the area of the brain that develops last. This is why kids, teens, young adults struggle to control their impulses, struggle to control some of their behaviors, maybe things that they say, struggle to control their emotions, is because they're still working on developing that part of the brain. But like I said, when the amygdala, when the emotions are going really strong, the prefrontal cortex starts to go offline. It doesn't work as well, which is why we don't always make the best decisions when we're emotional. So another way to look at it is having kind of an emotion center of your mind where your emotions are guiding you. You have a logical center of your mind where you use logic, cause and effect, reasoning to guide you. We want to find a good area of wise mind. We want to find that good synthesis, that connection between being able to be logical and experience our emotions at the same time. But if you notice, the farther you go over to the left into the emotion mind, the more emotions you have, the farther away from the logical side of your mind you go. So then we talk about coping skills. So there's a lot of coping skills out there, and I'm just going to go through a few. One of those coping skills is the deep breathing. Yes, focusing on the breath. But when you're doing deep breathing, when you're breathing in general, what you want to do is make sure you're breathing properly. A lot of times when we're breathing, we go, we bring our shoulders up, we breathe with our chest, and it comes down. And when we breathe like that, we're not actually using our full lung capacity to be able to breathe. We're not using our full lungs, we're just using the top half. So a way to help make sure that you are using your full lung capacity is to sit up straight, to maybe put your hands on your stomach and feel your stomach expand, or to take your hands and put them on your rib cage. And when you put your hands on your rib cage, your shoulders stay down and you breathe in slowly. You think low and slow. And you feel your rib cage expand. And you feel your rib cage contract again. You know you're getting your big deep breath when you can feel that happening. So there's taking deep breaths in a way that's the most effective, and then there's different ways of breathing. One of the ways of breathing that's helpful is counting your breaths. So it's counting an inhale to about 4 or 5, pausing, and then exhaling to about 6 or 7. You want to exhale longer than you inhale to make sure you get all of that air out, especially if you're having trouble breathing and because you're emotional. If you get to that point where you're upset and you're kind of doing that hyperventilation, with hyperventilation, what's happening is you can't get air in because you didn't get all the air out in the first place. And so by doing this counting breaths, it can be really helpful to make sure that you get all of your air out so you have space in your lungs for your air to come in. So if you're struggling to breathe because you're emotional, count about 4 breaths in, about to the ticks of a clock, pause, and then exhale out all the air as long as you possibly can before you take an in-breath again. There's also take 5 breathing. This is one kids really like. And so it's using your hand, and it's inhale, pause, exhale, pause. And it's tracing your fingers up, pausing at the tip, and exhaling as you go down. And you do it slowly as you go. It's an easy way to keep track of your breaths. And as you go through your whole fingers. And if you need to, you go back through the other way and you keep going back and forth if you need to. But take 5 breathing is really good for kids. Another one that we like to use is square breathing. This is when you take a square, you can draw a square on a piece of paper or use just the piece of paper itself. And you can inhale, pause, exhale, pause, inhale, pause, exhale, pause. You just want to get a good rhythm going. You want to get a good rhythm going for your breathing to help regulate it. Another calming skill that's very helpful is progressive muscle relaxation. This is when you're squeezing certain muscles in your body for a certain amount of time, and then you're relaxing them. There are a lot of scripts available online. There's a lot of YouTube scripts available that have different ways of talking, different types of progressive muscle relaxation. This one is really, really helpful to use, especially when you're struggling sleeping. This one can be really helpful as well. Guided imagery is another good calming skill. There's a lot of scripts and options that you have online. Again, what guided imagery is, it's somebody talking through a script and it's telling you what to see in your mind. It's telling you what to visualize. And you can have guided imagery. There's ones on YouTube that have to do with telling stories. There's a fairy story guided imagery for kids that's really good. And it helps them imagine things that are going on as they're talking. And by doing that, that's something that can be very calming. Coping with the 5 senses is another calming skill that I use with a lot of kids. It's basically finding things in your home that are connected to your 5 senses, you know, see, hear, taste, touch, smell. And those are the things that are calming to you. What kind of stuff that when you look at it, you find calming? What about the stuff that you hear? Is there sounds that you like to hear that you find calming? What about things that you like to touch? Is there something you like to squeeze or cuddle in to help bring you down, to help keep you calm? So it's identifying what those are. And by using those things, you can create a coping box. I do a lot of coping boxes with kids. And coping boxes are just a box, a bag, some type of container that when you're at home, what you're doing is you're taking all your coping skills and you're putting them in the same location. That way you know where your coping skills are, you have easy access to them. Another thing about when you're starting to struggle with those big emotions, remember, we're not thinking very well. And so when we're not thinking very well, it's really hard to come up with a coping skill off the top of our heads. I'm struggling right now, I'm emotional, I'm crying, I need to calm down. But coming up with a coping skill off the top of your head sometimes is hard. So having a coping box, having a place where these all are, having a piece of paper where you've written some stuff down of things that you can do can be really helpful, because then all you have to do is pick one and try it. It makes it so that way you don't have to use that area of your brain as much because it's not as functional. Another really good resource is called Change to Chill. Change to Chill is a free online resource that's basically a bunch of coping skills, and it teaches you how to use them. It's got video clips that teaches you and shows you how to do these things. It has different scripts for things. It's geared towards teenagers, but easily modifiable for kids, and I know plenty of adults who use it as well. Now, when we're dealing with our emotions, we can do different things to help us calm ourselves down. But sometimes we struggle to be able to calm. Sometimes we are just stuck. Our brains are stuck on whatever is making us feel upset, and the calming skills aren't as helpful. Then what we can do is come up with what we call rational calming skills, rational coping skills. So again, if you think about your brain, you've got that part of your brain, you got your emotions going, your amygdala is going, and it makes it hard for you to think. One thing that can be helpful is for you to do something super, super rational to help get that part of the brain back online. So different number games, doing Sudokus, doing math problems, if you're good at math. For me, if I was to do a math problem when I'm upset, that would be a really, really bad idea. Me and math do not get along, but I do like Sudokus, doing things that are logical, crossword puzzles. One that I teach a lot of people, adults and kids, 1A, 2B, 3C, 4D, 5E, 6F, 7G, all the way down to Z. And if you screw up, you got to start over. And if you try doing that, the thing is that you literally can't think about anything else when you're doing that, or you're going to screw up. So it really forces you to get into that rational, focused area of your brain. So I know a lot of people who use this 1A, 2B, 3C in order to help keep themselves regulated, especially if they're like struggling with anger, they're getting really frustrated at something. They can do it. 1A, 2B, 3C, 4D, 5E, and just keep going. It helps you remain regulated, helps you remain calm. Doing riddles, doing problem-solving tasks, doing tongue twisters. Strangely enough, one of the things that helped me get through the deployment was a tongue twisters. All I want is a proper cup of coffee made in a proper cup of coffee pot. I may be off my dot, but I want a cup of coffee in a proper cup of pot. Iron coffee pots and tin coffee pots, they're no use to me. If I can't have a proper cup of coffee in a proper cup of coffee pot, I'll have a cup of tea. Now, it took me a long time for me to be able to do that one, but it's something that I was able to learn. I was able to become competent in. It was a confidence booster for me, and it was a good coping skill. It's one that kind of like when things are starting to get out of control, it's something I can do, I'm successful at it, and it feels good. Creative writing, like we said, writing stories about things can be helpful. You know, if you're really struggling with your emotions, go write me a story about this. Go write me a story about that. Go write me a story about that time we went and you and, you know, the soldier and I, we all went and did this. Tell about this vacation, things like that. Reading a book is also really rational. And doing drawing, artwork, art projects, those kinds of things, those help get into that part of the brain too.